Good evening. Thanks for being here still and for your patience. We had a lot of tech stuff happen or not happen.
Every event is a learning event.
I really thought I knew what I was doing this time.
Well, it worked yesterday really well.
It did.
Well, now you know more, and next one will be even better.
Yeah.
Hi, Damon. Hi, Violet.
Good evening, everyone.
I'm just kind of posting around where I think people will see that we've switched over to Zoom, but it might be a small crowd.
Is this one able to go? No.
Yeah, I can show the video here. No problem.
Good. As soon as we get the room loaded, we're going to go straight into the video, actually. And if everyone sticks around, we hope you do. Afterwards, we'll have a Q&A and have a chat. We would love for you to stay if you can. But we are not going to start the video just yet.
I'm just double checking to make sure no one emailed me to say help or messaged me, any of those things.
I did, but I figured it out.
Thank you. We got such a good thread going on in the group about human rights, which is great. Yes, we will share the video afterwards.
Yeah.
But,
is the QA afterwards recorded as well?
Yeah, it'll all be recorded. So this is something we should tell you right off the bat, is that this meeting is being recorded because we had planned for it to just be kind of a webinar style thing. So if you're not okay with being recorded or being broadcast later, then you can turn off your video, or you can do whatever you need to. And
sure.
Just maybe some awareness that privacy wise you want to be thoughtful about what you're saying. And we can edit and cut to a certain extent, but it's better if we don't have to do it too much.
Mm-hmm.
So don't drop any F-bombs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I
Thank
don't
you,
care
Tracy.
about that.
I got that message loud and clear.
I'm glad I'm in the dark because I wish I'd taken a shower and put something on.
Did you not know? Look at how fabulous I look. This is because there's a Zoom setting where you can adjust the way your appearance.
There is.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I have the.
Oh yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, I have the auto mirror and the airbrush.
So I was playing with it today, and I think I maybe overdid it a bit, but
No, it's good. Nice and bright.
There you go. People are finding us.
Here we go.
So happy.
Thank you, everyone, for your patience and for joining us over here. Thank you so much.
We really thought we had it all worked out.
Valiant effort. That was an exciting 45 minutes. Wow. Almost. We'll try it again, I'm sure.
Oh, fun. Okay. Well, I don't see any other messages to me from people. Anyone else?
The only message I got was nice. It was from Jennifer saying it's nice to see my face.
That's great.
Well, we had 80 views, so they won't see this.
Great.
Okay.
I don't see anything else.
I think we're good.
Yeah.
That's okay. All right. Well, let's get to it.
Oh, wait a minute. Sorry. Violet Jones. Is Violet in?
Yeah, Violet's here.
Violet's
Okay, good.
No, she's not here. Can I? Oh, yes, she is. Can I
She
send
is.
the link out in case anybody else wants to join?
Yeah, please send the link out. If they don't have a name, we won't admit them, just so people join from their phone or something like that. They need to rename themselves. They
Okay.
need to be, just for security.
Yep. Oh, fair enough. Thanks.
And also, Cindy, you popped in after I said it, but this meeting is recording. And we'll do our best to cut stuff, but I just wanted people to know because we had planned it being just a webinar style thing. And so just so you're aware, we will probably use some of it and post it later. Okay, Heidi, did you want to
Yep.
say anything,
No,
or do you want me to
video's
just
got it.
jump in? So
Yep.
Heidi will speak a little more after. We had a nice plan, but now we're late. So
Yeah.
so we're going to get started with the video, if that's all right with everyone. And I do just want to say that the person who made this video is here watching. His name is Damon Kirsebom. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I really apologize, Damon, if I'm getting your last name wrong. But he created this last. Oh, he created it last year, and it was really amazing. Hang on. Everybody can hear me, right? Yeah, okay, good. Just for a moment there, it said I was muted. So we can talk about it more after, but I just wanted to say that he's here and thank you for coming. Okay, here we go.
Victor Hugo once said, "He who opens a school door closes a prison." In 2015, the United Nations introduced 17 goals, which include eliminating hunger, poverty, and gender inequality by 2030. The Sustainable Development Goals are the blueprint to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all. Goal number 4 highlights the need for inclusive, equitable education for all people. Malala is a girl who was shot in the head by the Taliban because she openly fought for the right to equal education access for girls in Pakistan. I'm happy to report that she survived and is now known worldwide for her advocacy and for risking her life to protect what is a basic human right. Education is a human right. It's easy, as a Canadian, to recognize the injustice made clear by situations like the one in which Malala found herself. It's easy to feel proud to live in Canada, a country with policies which protect such human rights. Are you surprised, then, that there are students in our nation who are denied access to a quality education? What I'm saying has dire consequences. These hopeful people are the would-be students in your communities and schools. They're from real families and they struggle for access to a real education. One particular group of these students, students with disabilities, are often excluded, poorly supported, and prevented from accessing the general curriculum. If nothing changes, 1/3 of students with disabilities will never graduate. In 2010, Canada ratified Article 24 of the United Nations Conventions on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which states that students with disabilities have the same rights to an education as every other person. This means that students with disabilities should be supported in accessing the general curriculum with their non-disabled classmates. They should have access to academic accommodations and to modes of communication that are proven appropriate for the individual student. For the most part, however, our schools have failed to provide the level of education that's known to raise people from poverty, improve overall well-being and health, and even improve a country's economy. Without quality education or vocational training, many people with disabilities will never work and may not have choices as to where they live. For people with disabilities, not being educated can lead to a life sentence of reliance on others. Yet, education is a human right. In her end of mission statement of April 12, 2019, United Nations Special Rapporteur Catalina Devandas Aguilar reported on Canada's education of students with disabilities. She wrote, "I was informed that many children with disabilities are still being taught in segregated classrooms or in special education schools, and I received worrisome reports that children with disabilities can be put on partial school days or temporarily removed from school for periods of up to 6 months without access to education." Indeed, Ms. Devandas Aguilar is correct. I personally know many students who are denied full school attendance. In fact, an education advocacy group called BCED Access recorded 3,600 exclusion incidences of school exclusion during the 2018-2019 school year in British Columbia. Understand, these are only the incidents which were reported by parents. The number of exclusions is likely considerably higher. Students were excluded from field trips, asked to stay home, asked to come in for only a short part of each day, sent home early or asked to come in late, or sent from general class to another school space. Did you know that if a student is excluded for even 1 hour each day, that student loses 5 hours of instruction each week? Worse, they lose 20 hours of instruction over 4 weeks, and approximately 200 hours over the school year. Many students receive far fewer instruction hours. According to the BC Ministry of Education Governance and Legislation branch, there are prescribed minimum hours of instruction provided to students. Yet, many students with disabilities are prevented from attending school for these prescribed minimums. Education is a human right, but students with disabilities are turned away. Getting into the building is not the same as being educated. The United Nations Special Rapporteur, Ms. Devandas Aguilar, also reported that children with disabilities in segregated classes, or those that have followed some kind of individualized education plan, may receive a different certification or diploma than other children, which limits their opportunities for enrolling in education at higher levels. And it's true. A 2019 study produced by the Faculty of Applied Science at UBC reported that the overall graduation rates for students with designations is only 66%. When I reviewed the graduation rates in the United States, I found that their results were very similar to those in Canada. This is a global issue. I wonder how long it will take for governments to enforce the changes that are needed in educating people with disabilities. After all, special education has had more than 60 years of practice, and still there's work to do. Up until the mid-1950s in British Columbia, the government took no responsibility for educating students with disabilities. These students were often sent to institutions. As parents began to advocate for education, the government began funding training for the province's first special education teachers. Up until the 1970s and the 1980s, students with disabilities were taught in separate schools, or at best in separate classrooms. In the 1970s and 80s, students with disabilities began to be integrated into mainstream classrooms. I believe it helped that 1982's Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms deemed it unlawful to discriminate against any Canadian based on their mental or physical disability. Equal access to education became law. By 1990, the School Act was revised to support an inclusive model of education, which means that all students can succeed in a welcoming, supportive environment. Ideally, every student is valued for their unique strengths, and the methods of teaching take into account the diversity of the students. Supports are in place. Education is a human right, but I assure you, we're not there yet. This speech was written by Damon Kirsebom, but this is not his voice.
I only wish I could speak so well, but
Talking is hard for me.
I share my words through typing and use a voice output app instead. This is me on my first day of school. I was so excited, as you can see. The realization that I was autistic had occurred to me, yet my innocent self has not yet grasped how this diagnostic label would negatively affect my education. I could not communicate my thoughts, although I assure you, my mind had been taking in information all along. I understood, but could not demonstrate my knowledge in conventional ways. I was the student who people believed incapable of understanding, and I received one-to-one support. In my early school years, I learned along with my classmates in the general classroom. There came a time, however, when the class moved forward, while I was stuck repeating lessons I had long understood, but could not show my understanding. Still, I loved being in the classroom, and made meaningful friendships. Another positive was that, while my classmates moved forward academically, I was present to listen to the instruction they received. Those years were quite special for me, and I received incredibly positive encouragement and support from teachers and other staff. When I entered grade 8, I was placed in a segregated classroom. It was in this discriminatory setting where my hopes for a real education were all but destroyed. Essentially, as I was separated from typical students, I was separated from the general curriculum. My autism diagnosis set me on an educational path which was extremely remedial, and it was set in stone that I would never graduate. I was grateful to participate in some typical courses, such as art. However, I never received any type of academic credit. My life in grade 9 began with such promise. I learned to spell out my thoughts. Slowly, as my sentences flowed, I imagined myself anew. I felt as though I had been kidnapped, and was finally free. By spring I was typing, on my own on an iPad. And, when I entered grade 10, I asked to attend typical science and social studies classes. I was allowed to enter the classrooms, however my special education teacher made sure to emphasize that I would not receive academic credit. I was determined to prove my intellect, and soaked up my courses with great enthusiasm. Imagine being in a separate area of the school, in a classroom where you are repeating simple lessons, and then suddenly breaking out. I hoped I would win over my special education teacher with my remarkable aptitude for science, but he had already decided I couldn't possibly understand the course. How a classroom teacher can support a student's education, provide access to general curriculum in an inclusive classroom, support students as they work towards graduation, build relationships with students, and between students, welcome outside experts and loved ones to improve success if necessary. How my special education teacher supported my education, did not support the use of my iPad for communication, and turned down offers of free training for staff. He misrepresented my mode of communication, and spread throughout the school that my typing was fake. Ignored medical experts, and outside educational assessments proving my intelligence, and focused instead on my initial diagnosis of autism. Denied me credit towards graduation, and attempted to remove me from academic courses to participate in life skills activities such as shopping, and practicing riding the bus. Forced me to write tests without the necessary practice or accommodations. Spoke openly about my perceived lack of intelligence in front of me, and to my support person. Education is a human right, and yet, one man deliberately smothered my academic aspirations without objection from school district administration. This is video of me participating in various sports. I hope it is obvious that I have the ability to learn, just like any other student. Yet, I had never received credit for physical education. Education is a human right, for all, and yet, vulnerable children and youth are systematically excluded, underestimated, segregated, and unsupported in our schools. Many students with disabilities are deemed incapable of graduation, and thus, are never educated. I cannot help but wonder whether students with disabilities are human. Humans, after all, have the right to an education, while students like me are so often denied access. As I contemplated my school experience, I wrote this poem.
I see the great cool gleam of your ivory tower, where challenges are mine but solutions are yours, where my cries are met with platitudes and silence. You resist. Your ivory tower is built on promises of education for all. Yet when I need help, you turn away. You refuse support and exclude me. You blame me. You resist. From within your ivory tower, you ignore outside expertise. You decline collaboration. You absolve yourself of responsibility with your low expectations. You resist. Perhaps you can't hear me from way up there in your ivory tower, where saving money trumps my rights, where my future hangs in the balance, and you can choose to educate me. Yet you resist. Climb down from your ivory tower and build trust through action rather than words, or prepare for my reaction to your violations. I resist.
I imagine, as you hear my story, that you are worried about my future, and the futures of other students who are discarded as I was. I left school in despair, and now attend a private school. I am happy to report that I will graduate with a full academic diploma. And I would also like to add that I was assessed by a full team at Vancouver's Primary Diagnostic Centre. As I had tried to demonstrate in public school, my assessment results confirmed that I have no learning disabilities. Actually, it seems I have a pretty good grasp. Recently, I won a high honors award for achieving more than 90% in all my courses. I wrote a chapter in a published book. I advocate for people with disabilities through sharing my own experiences. I suggest too that my autism label should not limit my potential, but rather prompt educators to look for unique strengths. I assure you, everyone has the ability to learn, given the opportunity. The injustice of being prevented from accessing an education has been traumatizing for me. I believe there are many students who have been similarly traumatized. Students who are asking for no more than a quality education. Students who are simply asking for what are their rights as human beings. Education is a human right. It has been argued that students with disabilities should be in a separate classroom. It can be difficult to support students who are atypical. However, it is never impossible. Properly supported students and staff can successfully produce an inclusive classroom environment that benefits everyone. Familiar, trained staff, who believe in their students, make an enormous difference in student success. Another criticism is that students with disabilities are too expensive to support in school, yet, if students are not adequately educated, they might never participate in the workforce. Also, parents of students who are excluded often cannot work, and this doesn't make sense from an economic perspective. An argument I have frequently encountered is that students with disabilities don't understand academic materials, and should focus on life skills, such as recycling. I argue that I am a perfect example of someone who is capable, but underestimated. There are many, many students who are limited by such low expectations. Will you walk with me? Changes must be made to improve this global issue. All schools must be compelled to 1. Provide access to the general curriculum in an inclusive environment. Stop exclusion. 2. Support students as they work towards graduation, rather than clinging to low expectations. This means, allow academic accommodations for all students who need them, such as keyboards, additional time, etc., hire adequate numbers of trained special education teachers, school psychologists and support staff. Allow students automatic continuity with trained support staff who have built successful relationships. 3. Collaborate. Welcome outside experts and parents to improve success if necessary. 4. Hold school districts and government accountable, which means, ensure all students receive the type of quality education necessary for success in adulthood. Track graduation rates, not simply completion rates. Provide adequate funding for supports. 5. Perhaps most importantly, welcome students with disabilities, and believe they are capable of learning. Finally, go to my Instagram and share this picture on social media, or post your own. At Damon Kirsebom on Instagram. Let elected officials and political candidates know that many students are not adequately supported in our schools. Also, let them know that you will walk with these students when you vote. And, perhaps most importantly, see all students as deserving of quality education. Please, don't leave us behind. Listen, education is, after all, a human right, and we are all human. As Malala once said, if people were silent, nothing would change. So please, use your voice. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to visit my Instagram to share my picture and use the hashtag education is a human right. This video was produced by me. However, I needed support in technical aspects, and with the spoken voice. I also needed to access my communication iPad. Without this help I could not have made my vision a reality. I am so grateful. Thank you.
And that's the video.
Thank you. Thank you, Damon, for being here with us to watch it too. I'm going to pass. Do you want to, should we read the chat and catch up?
Yeah, there's some things happening in the chat for sure.
Yeah.
I haven't been looking because I was keeping an eye on the
I'll
video.
take a moment then. I'm going to hand it over to Tracy right away because she has some action items she wants to talk about. So I'll just very quickly introduce Tracy, founder and chair. Chantel's here in the background doing tech, and Sydney, who's BC Access staff and on the advisory board.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that you might want to do. Oh, thanks, Damon. That's great. I'm so happy you were able to be here to watch, and I'm sorry we had all the technical challenges in the beginning. Heidi, the one thing we didn't do at the beginning, because we really wanted to just get to the video so people had time to see it, is an acknowledgement of the language.
Yes, okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm learning about acknowledgement. One of the things we have been exploring and learning about that Luke Durand, also known as Luke Native, talked about is who an acknowledgement is for. He knows on what land he resides. An acknowledgement is the person giving the acknowledging. So when I think about where I reside, Abbotsford, that's been a home to the Stilo Nation for 10,000 years, I think about education, that in 1995 I graduated. There was still a residential school open, and I was experiencing a very white, very colonial education, while other people were experiencing genocide. This system is inherently racist. And just as it occurs to me, the system is inherently ableist as well. That's where they intersect in advocacy, and I believe that's why we're all here this evening. Thank you for joining us on Human Rights Day. And thank you for the video, Damon. Thanks, Tracy.
Now you have me all weepy, Heidi.
Yeah, they're hard. It's hard sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it's very real. It's a tough thing to recognize, that whole, the colonial project that is education, and how it's impacted Indigenous students and Indigenous students with disabilities. I always think, are the hardest hit. But definitely, an ableist system that also excluded people with disabilities. And even when I was in school, although I was disabled, it wasn't apparent to anyone. So it just wasn't supportive, and nobody recognized. So, there's just layers and layers to it. So Sydney, because we did such a nice introduction earlier on Facebook Live that wasn't live, and so nobody saw it.
Do you want to allow me? I actually thought we were going to pull them together and make a video, but that's okay. I would like to introduce Sydney, if I may. Sydney has been with BC Access as staff for 5 months now, and was recently asked if she'd like to participate in the advisory board, and she said yes. So that's our Sydney. Thank you. Thank you. And Chantel in the background, board of directors, and Cindy is here as well, and she is on the BC Access admin team, and of course Tracy, our chair.
Yeah, and this was a very last minute decision. We kind of talked about the possibility, and I had reached out to Damon and asked him if it would be okay to share his film. And then, other things happened, life happened. I got sick for a little bit. And then 2 days ago, we said, okay, let's just do it. So this is why we're not thoroughly prepared, but we did it. Sydney's here because I really wanted to have someone who is currently a student in school and who has disabilities herself, and so has had that experience of being in school in the current system, and seeing the different levels of accommodation that happen and the barriers that are there.
Yes.
To accessing your human right to education.
Yes.
So we didn't have a big plan, but I wanted Sydney to be here, and I wanted to ask, and since everyone else is here too, I'm interested to know, what your reaction was. Had you seen Damon's video before?
Yeah, I've never seen that video before, but I think that's so well worded, and I think it's a really great introduction. I find, especially when I speak with people, sometimes teachers, often other students, as I'm lucky enough to go to a school where I can help teach classes, that a lot of people are completely unaware that exclusion is very real, and that it happens, and that it's widespread, that it's not even like a couple little isolated incidences. As we talked about, there are so many. And yeah, I just think that's a great video for everyone. Like, it gives some great information for like even someone like me who like lives it, for other people who may be totally unaware of the issue, for educators, for school boards, for everybody. I think it's a really well-made video, and Damon, I think it's great.
Me too. Did we want to look through the chat, Heidi, and see what there is?
Yeah, I will go back here. 1 moment. Jennifer Newby shared, I've cried every time, excuse me, I've cried every time I watch this. Damon, you are so clear, such a powerful voice. I am grateful for you. Thank you, Jennifer. And Dr. Catherine Garforth is with us, and she said invisible disabilities can cause so much damage.
Yeah, and then Sandra was saying that she thinks every school district should watch this, and I agree. I think it would be great to, especially it's that, I can't remember who said it at one point, was talking about the tyranny of low expectations, right? And I thought that was just such a good phrase, when we're talking about realizing the human rights of people with disabilities. That is such a big piece, that tyranny of low expectations, right? It's about more than just getting in the door, as Damon said. And then Cindy has said she shared it with senior staff in the North Van School District, which I think is wonderful. And yeah, I agree. I think it needs to get spread around a little more. So, we can definitely talk about doing that.
Here's one for you, Tracy. Amanda said, interesting story of the young man. Tracy, thank you for sharing his story. I'm glad he was able to graduate from private high school. Oh, thank you. So that's you and Damon.
Actually, Tracy, it's called a soft bigotry of low expectations.
That was it. Thank you. I knew there was
soft
a phrase.
Bigotry of low expectations.
So good.
Yeah. It was actually a Bush speech many, many years ago. I don't even remember when exactly, but his speechwriter was actually amazing. He didn't write that speech. And I don't think he coined that real phrase, but it's attributed to him. But yeah, it was a good one. And it's very, very relevant to this conversation and to human rights in general.
So when we had planned to do a Facebook Live, we were going to ask people to just, type 1 or 2 words in the chat to, say how the video, kind of a feeling, how that video made you feel. And so I don't know if you want to do that here or if you even want to speak it, that's okay too.
That's a good idea. Yeah, feel free to, with the knowledge that this is recorded, feel free to unmute. We can go around and do round robin. I'll begin with Cindy. 1 or 2 words about how you feel after watching that video.
Me?
Yeah, please.
Or you can pass. It's
Or
okay.
you
No, that's fine. I feel, and Damon, don't take this the wrong way, but I feel sad. I feel heartbroken that so many students in BC, but in Canada, have been ignored. So yeah, but I'm also thrilled that we're finding a way to give you a voice. So thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you, Cindy. Sydney.
I think the video, it's so many emotions. Like, it makes me sad. It reminds me of my own experiences. So like I relate to it, and then it also reminds me of like the things that I haven't experienced in education, and maybe even things I will experience. I'm in senior year right now and thinking about university, and I'm a bit afraid. It also brings me hope because I think this type of video is so important, and I'm hoping it really helps open some eyes.
Thank you for sharing, Sydney. Juliet, would you like to share a word or 2 about how you're feeling now after watching the video? What your thoughts are?
Sure. I think what I really like about it, and I just mentioned that in the chat, was that it shows people how normalized this form of discrimination is, the soft discrimination. And it's because it is soft. It makes sense to people that our kids shouldn't be included because they think, well, you're not able, so why would you be included in this? And we're kind to you by showing you how to teach you about, and nice that, it's great to have life skills, but that's what everybody needs. So I really appreciate it because it's something I can share with people, to say, no, this is really happening. So thank you, Damon, I just think you're amazing. I think I've watched another video from you too. You're great. Thank you.
Thank you, Juliet. Sinan Jones. Oh, Damon, would you like to say a word? And I believe you're there with your mother. Feel free to pass.
I think Damon said a little further up, he said, Sydney, thanks so much. I think we should lobby government and force them to watch it.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think everyone here could vote for that.
Yeah.
And then he also said further down, low expectations are how they get away with not educating us, which is absolutely true.
Yeah, it is.
All right. And he's passing.
Okay. Thank you, Damon. Jennifer Newby. Feel free to do it by audio, type in chat. Feel free to pass to anyone at any point.
Well, when I get over feeling the immediate sadness from it, because I feel like, that bigotry of low expectations is, I'm kind of looking down the road at what to expect from my guys because they're very small. But when I get over, or get past that immediate sadness, it just makes me more determined to dig in and start doing better. That's really it for me.
Thanks, Jennifer. And Jennifer, for those who don't know, she's responsible for the exclusion tracker since its inception and works very hard at that for BC Access along with Nicole Kaler, who's on our team. Thanks, Jennifer. And Sandra, would you like to share a few words? If you do, please just let us know in chat and I'll come back. Dr. Catherine Garforth.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, I will try and keep it short. I can't promise. Not always my best quality. But yes, thank you so much for creating this video, Damon. I have an invisible disability myself too, and have had the discrimination, and it's a huge battle, and it takes a lot of courage to go out there and speak and let people know about your vulnerabilities. So I definitely commend you and thank you for doing it. And I know there's like a whole bunch of awards that used to be around that I would definitely nominate this for, but unfortunately they're not existent anymore. But you've done a great job. There's so many problems that we're facing with our education system, and we really need to take that multifaceted approach. The grassroots parents movements, we need to do it in the teacher education programs. We need to do it in the schools, and we're constantly facing this backlash. And, you know, teachers work so hard and do so much, but a huge problem that we're seeing is the teacher education programs not providing them with the adequate information that they need. I know Sue Robbins and I have done some work together about trying to like dispel some of these myths related to Down syndrome. And there's a lot that we need to get out there just because people don't know it. And like the discrimination, and even letting teachers know about best practices that will help all students, whether they're verbal or nonverbal, become fluent readers and have better comprehension strategies. And that goes to the science of reading. And currently, you know, our instructional methods within the province of BC and even our curriculum is based on things that were proposed 55 years ago and have been proven wrong. And we're teaching our children to read like poor readers, right? And those are the strategies that we're giving when we have the research and the knowledge that's going to help all of the students out there. So yeah, and again, this is going to help our students who are nonverbal as long as they can comprehend language. Mm-hmm. These are strategies that are going to give them access to the reading and the writing and the communication and giving them the comprehension strategies. So I remember in the video, I think Damon said it was in grade 9 where he was learning these skills, you know, the typing and that sort of thing. But that's probably not knowing your case and not trying to impose my biases, but it's probably because you were taught in a whole language environment and we're just kind of glossed over, because you had mentioned in the video that you were allowed to participate but not instructed in these lessons. Right. So anyway, it's a big passion project for me. I'm hoping to get some things together to do like a human rights thing. There's a group of us across Canada that are working on something to put forward to the various human rights commissions based on the Right to Read project. But I'll try and end it there for now.
Thank you. And actually, Chantel, if you get can you make the time and put both of Dr. Catherine's websites on? She has an educational Facebook page, as well as an exceptional parents group. So we'll put those in the chat. Thank you. And Sue, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. I wanted to say to Damon, as I'm a storyteller too, and I thought that was a very well-crafted story about your experience in the school system, and you were really clear, I think, about the messages that you wanted to give to your audience, which was so awesome. And one of the things I was thinking about as a mom is how to hand over the microphone to my son more and not do so much talking on his behalf. So I just wanted to tip my hat to Damon's mom. And you know, I was kind of wondering how she helped craft those spaces that so that Damon was able to tell his own story as opposed to his mom telling his story on his behalf. And that's something I'm kind of struggling with right now, to make sure that my son is able to speak for himself And actually, he just needs very little modifications and adaptations, accommodations, just like at school, for him to be successful. So really, your film helped me think about, could my son make a film one day? And what would that look like coming from his own voice? So thank you for that.
Thank you, Sue. Catherine, Damon said in chat in answer to you, he said, Catherine, yes, I was drilled with sight words.
Yeah, and I don't know any of you who've done the drill decks, but that's not motivating for any student.
No.
No. Allie, would you like to share a few words either in chat or over audio, or feel free to pass on what thoughts you have on the video and what you're feeling now? At any point, please just let us know in chat. And Sandra did say, just sad. She's just sad, which is valid.
Yeah, I get that. And I'm you know, I don't know about you, Heidi, but it, you know,
Yeah.
I can't remember who said, but it's, yeah, Jen said it's motivational. And that's important. And a big part of what we had hoped to get together tonight, but really, you know, with 2 days pulling it together, we wanted to create a letter that people could sign on to and send out to the Human Rights Commissioner and their MLAs. And we were going to have a link, and you could go and you could fill out the letter, and we had such big plans. But I think that, you know, we're still going to do it, but probably, you know, it'll start tomorrow or the next day or something like that. So we'll just share around the link. But yes, because, you know, the story was really good. The story was told well, but my favorite part of the video was the action items at the end.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't disagree with a single one. And I think, you know, it all comes back to that accountability for me. And there's a lot of things that need to change within the system, but in terms of accessing human rights, it's all about the accountability. And because there isn't adequate accountability, then we can't adequately access human rights for our kids. You know, Sydney's been advocating for herself, you said, for at least a few years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, for you as well, that if you needed to be advocating right now, you have to take it, you know, up the chain sort of thing. There's no accountability that your school has to the Ministry of Education to make sure that you're being properly educated as a disabled student.
Yes, I've been doing advocacy for a while, especially in the past. I mean, mostly through my high school experience. I didn't really discover, I wish I had have known, like, kind of that I like had a voice for myself, that I had options. I wish I had found this group when I was in middle school, that my family had found it, but I kind of went through middle school, even elementary school, and before, experiencing a lot of different kinds of discrimination in all sorts of schools. But I've been lucky to, in the past, definitely the past 4 years, I'm in grade 12 now, have found advocacy, and I'm now pursuing it with you guys.
Yeah, we're really happy to have you too.
Yeah.
So
as
cool.
we form this letter over the next few days, we will be posting it in the group, right, in the BC Ed Access group, and keeping updates on the main page, so people can still stay involved, even though what we were going to do tonight was part of that work.
And please share everything. Get the word out to, just put it up on your Facebook page, Instagram, Twitter. Once we start sharing it out to the wider world, then other people can pick it up and we can gain more allies, because I think this really needs to be pushed out there as far as it can go.
Yeah, and Chantel,
Yeah.
you know, because you attended one of the meetings with the Human Rights Commissioner when the commissioner was doing sort of town hall meetings around the province. You attended one of them. And I remember you saying that, you know, a lot of people brought up the topic of disability as, you know, an issue of discrimination, an issue that they hope to see addressed. But it sounds like they're not actually planning to address disability as a topic right now under their current mandate.
Exactly. She supposedly is the person who chooses what she would like to direct most of their energy on. When I was in the town hall meeting, I asked, what are the cases that are heard the most at the Human Rights Tribunal? They're two separate entities, but she obviously, they sort of intertwine quite a bit, right? And she said disabilities was the ones they heard the most.
Yeah, by a large margin, actually.
By a large margin, yeah. And I'm like, I kind of wish you to pick disabilities to talk about, but okay. So it's definitely on their radar. But we all want to see action now. Like we all are like, okay, it's time for action.
Yeah, and I'm going to be honest. The other thing is we've just had an election and we have a new cabinet, so new ministers in a lot of the places. And one of the issues for me is I read all the mandate letters. Okay, that's who I am. So a mandate letter is a letter that the premier writes to each cabinet minister and also to the parliamentary secretaries who are in charge of. So for example, accessibility, there's a parliamentary secretary in charge of accessibility. Only 3 of those mandate letters mentioned disabilities. They actually said special needs, but only 3 of all of the letters. And you know which letter didn't mention it, which blew my mind, was the parliamentary secretary's letter for accessibility. So I'm a little confused how they wrote a letter about accessibility, and the big project is accessibility legislation. And they didn't even allude to really disabled people in any way. It's very strange.
That's so odd.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a part of this evening too. So stay tuned and catch up on those ways on the BC Access site and online to help participate in that piece, because there will be an open letter and everyone should be involved. Everyone's welcome.
So everything that people have been working on with Minister Fleming, how does that transition to the new minister?
Well, I mean, the good news for BC Ed Access and other inclusion groups is that we work with ministry staff. Right. So we meet with ministry staff every other week now. We were meeting weekly through COVID for a long time, and now we meet every second week. Mm-hmm. And that continues. I'm sure the minister could shut it down if they wanted to, but ultimately, people at that level want to let their staff do the work that they want to do the work. And I know that the ministry staff find it useful to meet with us regularly.
Spontaneity. I guess I just know, like I spoke to Minister Fleming on a few occasions, but now that it's like Scott Andrews still part of that or no?
Yes. Yeah. So he's still the deputy minister. So if he, has been privy to that information, then he has it. But, I know what you've been advocating for, and I would recommend that you write yourself a little introductory letter to the minister. Just maybe touch on, what you talked about. And even if you brought materials to the meetings, attach them and send them along. So,
Right. Yeah. We're just waiting for the Right to Read project to come out from Ontario before going to that next step to hammer them.
What I think I keep thinking about with accessibility, even largely in Canada, is that we're so behind, and I feel like that's such a problem. And that I find as well when I do my own advocacy, especially most like right now, mostly in regard to like service dog law and people not following it, is that there's so many levels at which you can find discrimination and like lack of legislation, which I think is pretty odd for a country who likes to talk about inclusivity and pride themselves on that, and then continues to forget disabled voices and rights and human rights at all.
And this is why I brought up, the mandate letters, because to me, it's really worrying, and it doesn't make me feel good about, the plans and directions for the next 4 years. And I think that we, that's why I think we need to start with a letter to make it clear, that those human rights, that there's a significant number of people that are concerned about it. Hang on. Speaking of.
There's a comment for you, Tracy. Sinan said, I would like to see wording which prevents districts from avoiding actually educating.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, that was Damon. Yep.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm at. Hang on, I got Samantha knocking at my door.
Exactly. Accountability is so important. It's one of the only ways that you can find the only way you can actually force them to do what they need to do, whether they believe in it or not. They're still going to have to do it because we know that there's still a lot of bias out there. There's still a lot of misinformation out there. But when you have that, at least that mechanism to force the issue, you don't have to wait, for them to get trained. You don't have to wait for some of the other things that will follow along, a change in environment or change of ethos, within the employment or within the environment that we are working within. So having that accountability kind of forces the issue a lot, in my opinion, a lot quicker.
One of the things I go back to that is shocking to me is the UN Rapporteur report that declared our education system not inclusive. And I almost feel like no one talked about that at length.
Yeah.
It's been completely missed. Right.
Well, nobody wants to think that they're being, ableist or racist or any of the ists, you know what I mean? So if they acknowledge the UN, then they have to acknowledge that they've been doing the wrong thing for a really long time.
Yes.
So we kind of need to get around that. And accountability, I think, really helps with that. Jennifer Newby said somebody brought up Minister Whiteside's background. Is labor and union management. We need someone with actual education background. Yeah. And Damon says we need to put a face or faces on this. Being educated has improved my life trajectory. Exactly.
Yeah.
They need to know who it is they're affecting.
Yeah, the stories make a big difference. I mean, that's, stories about real people and real people who can speak to their experiences and real students. And this is a big thing for me, is that, as Sue said, as parents, we talk about our kids a lot.
Yeah.
And we talk for our kids a lot. And that's why, we could have another conversation about human rights, but I wanted to share what Damon had to say, and I wanted to bring Sydney into the conversation. And we need to start having those conversations with students who are experiencing it right now.
Can I give a different perspective?
Yeah, of course.
So I don't know if I necessarily agree of having somebody that understands education as the Minister of Education. And the reason that I say that is because because we did have a teacher who was the Minister of Education and nothing changed. Yeah. And, I think that I have some hope with somebody that has a labor background, because they are supposed to be about workers. They're supposed to be about human rights. They're supposed to be about women's rights. They're supposed to be about, so I have some hope. I'm optimistic. But that's just me. Yeah.
I feel the same, Cindy. I'm optimistic about it. I think, not just having the labor background, but also having that kind of high level bureaucratic background. It means being able to step into the the challenges of working in government and maybe get up to speed a lot faster. That's what I think anyway.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make
go ahead.
The faces, and I totally agree, but I also want to speak from the perspective as someone who became that poster child. I was the poster child from the age of 8 for learning disabilities, and I'm fine with it and everything, but it's tiring, exhausting to always have to be that brave face, tell your story, and it's a position that we shouldn't have to put children in, to expose them and tell their stories and their deep dark secrets and know how low they've been because of other people's mistreatment of them and what they've gone through. Like, it's very personal, and yes, it's an accomplishment and something to be celebrated when they succeed, but then it also says, well, look, I'm very privileged, right? I know that I have a very unique situation because my parents had the money and the insight and the time to put in to get me where I did. Had I been any other student, when they dropped me off in grade 5 and said, okay, well, you know what, you're not going to accomplish anything, then I wouldn't. So it's really, yes, we need cases, but we have to be protecting of those. And like, I have 2 children I have 3, but 2 school-age children. One's on the spectrum, the other one's showing all the flags for learning disabilities, and I've alerted them for the past 3 years of this, and they're doing nothing, and it's hitting like that brick wall. And it's like, okay, do I make them those poster children because their needs aren't being met, or do I want to give them that life where they don't have to be advocating all the time, because it's tiring and exhausting, and it's a role that I don't want to impose on them.
Yeah, and I think, that's really important. And I think the distinction here is that this is, something that Damon came to on his own, right?
No, I'm
I'm agreeing with you. I'm just saying that it's that approach that I think is the only thing that works. I mean, I invited Sydney here because I know that she's passionate about advocacy, not just because she's disabled, right?
I feel that if the individual's in that position, then great. But I know other children that, like, you think about the Moore case, right?
Oh, yeah.
And because the parents were fighting for the rights, I became that child, and it's fine. There's nothing wrong with being an advocate and being the self-advocate. And it's a role that I've loved. Like, I've done it throughout high school, university, like everything. And it's a role that I love. I just want to put that caution there. It's not the right choice for every child.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. I think that's a really good perspective. And like, I am very comfortable, like, personally with like accepting that there is some level of like my privacy that like I am showing to the world when I advocate and when I write emails and letters and all of those things. And that definitely, that there are some students who are not comfortable be like publicly advocating, and that definitely, that is totally fine and should be respected. It's interesting that you brought that up, because I was about to say that I would be happy to share my story if we ever like wanted to do that as part of the letter. But yes, absolutely. I've spoken to people like within my circle who have been like, so glad you're fine with talking about it, because I could not do that. And I totally respect that. And it did take me a very long time to get here. But I'm happy to be here, and I am very happy with what I'm doing.
I wanted to, Allie Johnson Foster had said before that she didn't watch the video, so didn't have a comment. But if there was anything you wanted to say about the conversation, feel free, please. I'm sure you're up to speed on what the content was. Any point, go ahead, just type it in. So Tracy, can I ask you about the timeline?
For the
Do you
letter
want me
writing?
to, like, do we want to acknowledge that it's 7:55?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, in case anyone's actually assuming we were going to stop at 7:30.
Yeah, so maybe we'll stop, now we're at 8,
Okay.
maybe wrap it up, and then, yeah.
And anyone who wants to stay can stay.
This is all I do with my life. I can chat about this for hours.
It's almost like you run an advocacy organization.
That's so weird, right?
Yeah, I like what you said, Damon. Advocacy creates vulnerability. It's risky. and yet vulnerability is what reaches people. I've been dwelling on that a lot today in the past few days. Just somebody said something about not being able to speak up. They face repercussions. There's all of that behind it. So you're kind of like, you're advocating. So some of us are able to advocate, and that's great. And then we like, oh, I wish, everybody could advocate and stuff like that, but they can't. And that's just the nature of the game. I don't want to call advocacy a game, but it's the nature of our work, that you have to share very vulnerable pieces of your life to gain access to these things, to gain interest, to get buy-in by these folks. And it can be really annoying and hard, and a lot of us burn out after a while because it just becomes too much giving and not enough receiving.
Have you ever heard the parable of the choir? You've probably seen it shared around on, social media. So I won't get the words right, but essentially the idea behind, in a choir, everybody is singing together in one voice, but not everybody has the same sort of breathing capacity. But because you're a choir, you can stop singing and other people are still singing, so they're kind of covering while you rest. And so this, I'm sure you can see where this is going. The idea is that, they're when you're advocating, when you get burnt out, when you get tired, there are other people who will pick up and let you rest, and I've had that, right at the beginning of the whole BC Ed Access thing. It sort of blew up the Facebook group and it was really growing fast. And then I had to step away because I had a lot of, personal stuff going on and I just couldn't handle it. And so Kathy Camley graciously stepped in for a good, I don't even remember, probably almost a year, and kind of took over admitting that. And it was amazing. And then she sort of pulled me back in and said, "You're ready now, right?" She's very kindly, handed the reins back over. And I see it all the time. I see advocates who, have the energy, they don't have the energy, something happens in their personal life. There's always reasons, but there are many of us. So, we're doing the work together.
I do also think about how I was thinking about everything we've talked about and the fact that I am luckier than some, that I essentially feel up to advocating for myself on a regular basis and often like helping other people do so, and that the results that I have had and the opportunities that I have had are potentially better than for those who cannot advocate for themselves.
Yeah, which is a big problem, right? And that's where it comes right back full circle to that accountability piece, because it shouldn't have to be people like you who have to lift it up. There should be accountability. Yes. If, specific to education, if a child is not being adequately supported, somebody should be noticing that besides the parents, the kids, someone should be noticing it from up here and addressing it.
Yeah. I almost completely burnt myself out in grade 10 dealing with exclusion, and definitely I do think about that.
Yeah.
Right.
Lee Robbins said in chat, she said, yes, Brene Brown even calls it a vulnerability hangover. It takes a lot to keep telling your story. That's why having a film is awesome. You can use the film as your proxy for your story, so you don't have to repeat it over and over.
It's such a smart idea.
Yeah.
We'll be sharing this video over and over and over.
I know your son, Sue, is an actor, so there's definitely some film, possibilities there.
Mm-hmm.
It should be mandatory. Absolutely. Yep. On that note, it's 8 o'clock, so I'll officially end the evening, and please, everyone, stay around to chat.
But we need to get Sue's son, Aaron Waddingham, out there so that he can get in Deadpool with the Rock. He is so much fun to work with, and we need to get him out there.
Okay, sounds good.
Well, BC Ed Access needs to make a movie.
Yeah, so true.
A documentary would be cool.
It would be cool.
Oh, that would be cool. Mm-hmm. What a documentary of the history of education in BC.